The best 6 apps for retail businesses. The truth is it's next to impossible to narrow it down to 6. There are so many apps for retail business, and even to choose which ones are the best is next to impossible because a lot of that is very subjective depending on what's most important to you. Do you sell physical products? Do you sell digital products? If you sell physical products, do you have multiple warehouse locations? How do you sell? Where do you sell? Do you sell it online? Do you have many different websites or just one? Do you sell on Amazon, eBay? Do you have a Shopify account so you can sell the stuff on Facebook? And if you have those kind of situations where you have multiple sites and multiple selling locations, multiple sales channels, then you're going to need a solution that is able to take all of these sales from all these places and sort of merge them into one place where the orders can then be processed into your accounting software. And then somehow you're going to need to be able to reconcile all of that in terms of the payments that come into your account, where they came from, and how they get grouped so that you can match up what's in your accounting software with what actually went into your bank account on a day-to-day basis. And that last piece is the one that I still have not found a good solution for. A lot of the retail apps that are out there handle every part of the process really well right up to that point, and that's where, and I put this in the write-up and I was half joking about it, but that's where the e-commerce industry has failed the accounting industry. It's like these developers just stop right at that point, and maybe it's because they're not accountants, they don't really think about that part. But I would implore an e-commerce developer out there, just one of you out there, if you would hire an accounting professional, or maybe 2 or 3, and learn from them what needs to happen on the accounting software side of things, and you can develop for that, you will probably win over anybody else that you would perceive as your competition. Meanwhile, for those of us who need to use these applications and figure out what's the best one, here are 6 of the best apps for retail businesses. I'm going to give you a high-level overview of each one, and then we're going to look at how you can start outlining what your sales channels and process looks like so you can start figuring out how to put in the pieces in between and along the way in terms of which of these solutions might work best for you. So, looking at my screen and looking at these in alphabetical order, we're going to start with Agile Iron. Agile Iron has been around for a few years. It's been created by somebody whom I know personally. Stan is his name, and I believe his son helps him run this business together. And they've really built out a very robust application. In fact, I'd almost be inclined to say this might be the best of the 6. But again, that's subjective. It depends on what you need. But I guess the reason why I'm leaning that way with Agile Iron is it seems like they've thought of just about everything, with one exception: multiple sales channels. No, I take that back. It has the multiple sales channels. Inventory locations is what it doesn't have. In fact, only one of these apps that we're looking at today can handle more than one location for inventory. So, why I like Agile Iron, again, short of the inventory location problem, it handles everything. And as you can see, just looking at the navigation along the left, it has some CRM-like capabilities. I mentioned that on the write-up, that might or might not be important to you. And within that, we have potentials, right? Potentials are people we've talked to, but they're not quite leads yet. Then they become leads, and then they become accounts, right? And then within that, somewhere we have people who are contacts, right? Then we get into the product management. Over here we have products, we have vendors, and we can set up different price books because we might sell the same products for different prices on different sales channels. So it's really useful. They've really kind of thought it through on this. We have the shipping and receiving area too, which can really be useful, again, if you have that need. So Agile Iron really has just about everything you could possibly need, especially if you have a complex online retail structure that needs to be dealt with. And by that I mean if you have multiple sales channels, that can be handled really well and really easily from here. So that's Agile Iron in a nutshell. Like I said, I can only look at these things at a high level right now because we're looking at 6 different applications. Which brings us to the next one, which is Deere Inventory. Now, Deere Inventory is the only application that can handle multiple inventory sites. All right, we're not talking sales channels, we're talking inventory sites. So if I want to set up different locations, because let's say I have some inventory in a warehouse and some inventory that's been sent to Amazon to sell direct, where there's your 2 locations right there. And if I have more than one warehouse, which as you grow and get bigger and bigger and sell in a broader geographical range, that starts to make sense because from a customer service standpoint, you want to be able to get things shipped to your customers very quickly and at the lowest possible cost. So as your geographic range spreads, you're going to want to set up multiple warehouses. For those reasons, Deere Inventory is a very compelling solution to look at. Now, what Deere Inventory does not have is it doesn't have the multiple sales channels. However, when you look at the integrations here, what you'll do is instead of having multiple sales channels, you'll just link Deere Inventory up to each individual channel. So if you sell on Amazon, if you have a Shopify account, if you sell on eBay, that's all here. It also integrates with lots of other online store applications, Magento, WooCommerce. I mean, you can scroll the list yourself and see it has lots and lots of integrations so that Deere Inventory, even though it doesn't in and of itself handle multiple sales channels, may still be the right solution for you, especially if the inventory management component is really, really important to you. Going back here to the reference books, this is kind of where I would probably be hanging out the most, especially when we're getting things set up in the first place. You know, it has the financial integration. It integrates with QuickBooks Online. Here's your locations and bins. That becomes really important to me. It can also handle the assembly process really well. I mentioned this in the write-up. I'll mention it again now. Deere Inventory, coupled with QuickBooks Online, gives you all the functionality that you have when you're using QuickBooks Enterprise solutions with advanced inventory. And Deere Inventory plus QuickBooks Online combined costs less. So definitely a way. If you're stuck on QuickBooks Enterprise with advanced inventory and thinking you can't go to the cloud because QuickBooks Online doesn't have it, think again, because if you do QuickBooks Online plus Deere Inventory, you have everything you need to manage your retail business in the cloud. So that's Deere Inventory in a nutshell. Next, we're looking at SalesPad. SalesPad Cloud is something I've only looked at more recently myself. SalesPad originally had a CRM that they built, and then this came out, I want to say within the past year or so. Really good product, doesn't have multiple inventory locations, doesn't have multiple sales channels, but everything else that you need, and assuming you don't need those things, SalesPad is definitely a compelling option for you. And pricing-wise, SalesPad is probably the least expensive. It's a straightforward $99 per user per month. All the other ones, cost more than that. So SalesPad is definitely something worth looking at. Again, if you look down the left-hand side at the navigation of these things, it's pretty quick to see what they cover and what they don't, right? And what I've done is I've gone through and clicked around on here to see if I go to create a new item, do I have assemblies? Well, it's got assemblies down here. So again, if you're in a manufacturing plus retail concern where you create the products from raw materials and then sell them online, then this, again, might be a perfect solution for you. It is a little short on integrations, but again, it's a newer product. I imagine that's going to change over time. But here's the QuickBooks Online integration, and it does integrate with Shopify. This I thought was a settings option, but actually it's ShipStation. So again, if shipping is an area that's of great concern to you, that's here. And then it has an integration with something called PayFabric, which honestly I've never heard of before. So SalesPad might be a great solution for you, again, if you don't have the concern of multiple sales channels and don't have the concern of multiple inventory locations. Shopify, I'm not even going to compare with the others because, like I said in the write-up, Shopify, I'm just going to tell you, you just need this. You just need to set up Shopify, if nothing else, because it gives you the ability to sell seamlessly on Facebook. And I don't care who you are, what you do, who you're doing it for, your potential customers are on Facebook, because pretty much everybody these days are on Facebook, except for your kids. Your kids are maybe on Instagram more than Facebook these days. Bottom line, set up Shopify. As we've already seen, it can be integrated with any of the three applications that we've looked at so far. Will have integrations with Shopify. So Shopify, in and of itself, isn't going to be something you're going to use for inventory management or any of those more robust things. Shopify is just going to give you more of a presence online, so you have more exposure to more customers, process sales, and Shopify has clearly made it easy for other retail applications to pull data in from Shopify and then manage what you need to from there. So that's Shopify. WebJillaT is more of an order processing tool, and WebJillaT might just be the solution you need to integrate all of your selling channels in one place, with one important exception. And I know that the company is aware of this. I discovered this through a client of mine, and he told me he's had detailed conversations with the folks at WebJillaT, so that they are very aware of the issue. I mentioned it in the write-up, I'll mention it here. The one point where WebJillaT suffers a limitation, for lack of a better way to put it, is if you're selling on Amazon and you want to bring Amazon in through WebJillaT, WebJillaT is going to push every sale you made on any given day into your accounting software to be received and reconciled. The problem is if for some reason something didn't ship, Amazon will not fund those orders. Amazon doesn't fund things until they ship. So if something's back ordered or if for any other reason the order is held up, you'll not be funded, and now you have a reconciling nightmare because you're going to have to figure out from among that day's sales which sales didn't ship, and based on that remove those from your sort of calculation in terms of how much money you should be receiving in your account from that day's sales through Amazon. And then reconciling that with what came in on the banking side. That's the only limitation. Other than that, WebGillaT is an awesome application for retail business, especially if you're concerned with connecting multiple sales channels in one place. And as you can see here from the welcome screen, there are lots and lots of online stores that WebGillaT can be connected to. So pretty much wherever you're selling online, WebGillaT will help you centralize that very easily, again with the exception really being Amazon. I wouldn't recommend using Amazon unless for some reason you don't have an issue and everything you ever sell on Amazon always ships right away. So it's an important qualifier there. And that's why, like I said in the beginning and in the write-up, it's really hard to say that these are the best. These are my top applications that I'm looking at right now. Next we have WooCommerce. If your website is built in WordPress especially, WooCommerce is definitely a solid option, especially if you're not selling physical products. If you're selling digital products or you're selling memberships or you're selling subscriptions, WooCommerce is awesome, and it happens to be the tool that I use in my own business because I don't sell physical inventory. All of my products are digital. So here's a quick look at a WooCommerce dashboard in the back end of my website, and you'll see very quickly here, if I go to create a new product, it's just very straightforward and drop dead easy to use WooCommerce, but it does experience limitations when it comes to handling inventory. And you'll see when I go to create a new product that it does have an inventory feature. However, and I can enable the stock management at a product level. However, I can put in the quantity, it will track the sales and reduce that quantity, but I'm manually going to have to come in here and add quantities back in when I've made a purchase, and that's not ideal, especially this day and age. My goal when it comes to these applications is that everything should be automated as much as possible, and I don't want any friction. And having to come in and manually update, imagine especially if I have lots and lots of products, having to manually update quantities is it's too much friction. It's not going to work. Now, there are other add-ons and plugins that you can add on to WooCommerce, and there's even an area of plugins for inventory management specifically, but I didn't see anything in there that gave me confidence that it would all be managed well. And I also don't see an easy way to integrate this into QuickBooks. It does have an integration with Xero, but I don't know anything about how that works or how well that works, and it looks like it's just for inventory management between this and Xero. So again, at this point, I wouldn't necessarily recommend WooCommerce as the right app for retail business if you're selling physical products. If you're selling digital products, I'd use this all day long. And as far as the integration does go, for myself, because I use QuickBooks Online, I can get, there's another plugin where you can, that you can install that allows you to very easily export your sales. You can set the period, so I can export just the sales that I need to, and then I use a third-party application called Transaction Pro Importer, and I import my sales receipts into QuickBooks Online very quickly and easily. Once you save the mapping, it's very quick and easy to do. And then, of course, with WooCommerce, you have to link up your payment gateways. So you can use Authorize.net, you can use Stripe or PayPal. That's what I choose to do. Authorize.net, my personal opinion, of course. Everything I say is just my opinion. But Authorize.net is more trouble than it's worth for processing payments online. I'd much rather use Stripe or PayPal. But that goes with the caveat that you have to be doing under a certain amount of sales volume for Stripe and PayPal to make sense. At a certain point, those solutions get way too expensive, and then Authorize.net does become worth the trouble, so to speak. So those are your 6 best apps for retail businesses, as best as I can offer them to you right now. I also mentioned in the write-up that I probably could have included Square as a 7th very easily, but again, if I added in all the things that I wanted to, this list would be very long and you'd never watch this video. Now, last but not least, what I want to do is I want to give you an idea of how you might go through the process of laying out your e-commerce layout to see where and in which places do you need solutions. So let's create a new thought here. This is a mind map software that I use, and we'll call this My Business, My Retail. And we'll come in here and let's actually do this as a jump instead of above. This way it kind of keeps it a little bit separate. So first we have our sales channels, right? Where do we sell stuff? So I might have my website, and I might have Amazon, and I might have eBay. And of course you might have multiple websites, but you get the idea. So now here's where the sale happens, right? Customers come on, they go to one of these places, and the sale happens here. The next level of something that we need really is inventory management. Right? So I need inventory management for wherever I sell it. Right? And this is the piece that gets really tricky, because the question is, do I have multiple, now I have to ask, do I have multiple inventory locations? Do I have to deal with that part? Because then I have to know when I'm selling on any of these places, where it's pulling the inventory. Is it coming out of my warehouse? If I have several warehouses, which warehouse is it coming out of? Then with Amazon, for example, we have the issue of, is it being taken out of the Amazon Direct inventory, where I've loaded up Amazon with inventory physically and they sell out of that inventory, but if I run out, then I can still sell. It won't hold up the sale on Amazon, but that's where I'll have to ship direct from my own warehouse. This is the stuff we have to think about. We really have to think about how information and ultimately physical inventory needs to flow. Right? The ideal solution here is make sure that you always keep Amazon well stocked, so nothing ever has to come directly out of your warehouse through Amazon. You want Amazon to pull from its own inventory, because that's going to be an inventory site location that you set up if you're using something like Deere Inventory. Now, after the inventory management, we also need the order processing, right? So let's just take any of these, and let's say we have order processing, and let's just call it payment processing. Right, so payment processing also needs to come out of each of these. Right, now Amazon handles the payment processing by itself, right? Amazon will process the payments and fund them into your bank account. For eBay, most of us use PayPal, because PayPal was, it was bought by eBay a long time ago from Elon Musk. So pretty much since then, PayPal was the payment source for anything you ever sold on eBay. Then, of course, your website, you might have any number of different payment gateways. You might have Stripe and PayPal, Authorize.net, Square. There could be a number of payment processing solutions. The bottom line is, from the payment processing, we need to get things into the bank account, right? And then we also need to get this into the accounting software. And then the other thing that needs to get updated to the accounting software is our inventory management. So I'm just going to drag and connect that. So this mind map is available to you, by the way. The link is in the write-up. So you can click around and get an idea of how I've just put this together. The bottom line is, this is a kind of a high-level overview of what you want to think about and how you want to look at the different pieces that need to be connected in order to get all this whole ecosystem created. And that's really the job at the end of the day. Probably more so for somebody like me as the accountant who helps you with this stuff than it is for you yourself, unless you're choosing to take it on by yourself and without the help. Then what you'll have to do is you'll have to think about, how am I going to create this ecosystem? And what does that ecosystem look like? Here are all the pieces. I just went through it very quickly and at a high level for you so that you could start to think about that. It starts with the sales channels. That's where the sale is initiated. That's where it takes place. But then you have to think in terms of what information has to flow from there and where does it have to go. The inventory, the payments, the funding, how it gets into the bank account. And that last piece is the critical piece that I don't believe has been solved for very well by any of these solutions out there. And that's why I put it up at the top of the write-up, saying the e-commerce industry has failed the accounting industry. I'm being dramatic for the sake of illustrating a point, but the point is that this is one area that's still a weakness, as I see it, across all these applications. But there you have it, my friends. You have my best 6 apps for retail businesses based on the research I'm doing currently. And as I also mentioned in the write-up, I'm hoping to roll out a part 2 of this where I can kind of give you more information as I continue my research in this area and learn more myself. That's what it's all about for me at the end of the day, is I learn this stuff so I can pass it along to you in bite-sized digestible chunks that make a lot of sense. As always, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. I hope you had some fun and learned something along the way here, and I look forward to seeing you on the web.